So I've been thinking about this kid lately. Back when I was in middle school, there was a kid in our friend group whose name was Felipe. And Felipe was this insanely statted out, maxed out, 20 in intelligence D&D character who was a mathlete who just solved all of the Rubik's Cubes from 3-3 to 5-5. And half of the classes that he took, he had to walk up to the high school for intellectual kid. And the one thing he also was a trans ally, which is no mean feat in the year of 2012 as an 8th grader, aka a 14-year-old for you non-Americans out there. And as someone who, as far as I'm aware, did not have any relationship to a trans person. Just an ally for the love of the game. To an undereducated 13-year-old me, this seemed sort of like a blemish on his record. Come on, you're traveling to other countries to compete in math against other kids, and you don't know that a man's a man and a woman's a woman? Come on, Felipe. And naturalmente, all of us were oh, he must know a queer person. His mom must be a lesbian or something. Because as middle schoolers, we just didn't understand the concept of just basic empathy for disenfranchised groups. I kind of got the gist of I'm not racist, I'm not sexist, but I don't think I yet had tapped into oh, you can be not racist and not sexist, not in relation to the women you know, or the black friends you have. You can just be not racist and not sexist because it's the right thing to do. In the modern day, when I'm interacting with grown adults who lack basic empathy, it's strange to look at these grown adults and think, oh, you right now have the level of empathy that I had when I was undergoing puberty actively. But in regards to Felipe, there were two primary moments that I still kind of remember having with him in regards to trans people. I believe the first was about Conchita Wurst, who won the Eurovision contest for 2012 or 2013, and who now, after doing some research, I know is a drag queen and not a trans woman. For the sake of the conversation, we're just talking about a trans woman who has a beard. But I think he showed me a picture of a trans woman with a beard. I was like, oh yeah, she's pretty, but that's a man. And then he told me about hirsutism, which is that condition that cis women can have where there's an issue with their androgens and the cis woman can just grow a full beard. And I was like, well, I mean, yeah, but they were born women, so that's just the one thing. And he says, yes, but you see my point that it's still possible for you to acknowledge that this is a woman, but also she has a beard. I think that was the first person who was able to point out to me, no, your first initial thought of oh, this one characteristic, this one aspect of a person's body cannot be used to disqualify either their womanhood or their manhood. Obviously, at the time, I was very resistant to this new information that just didn't gel with my basic understanding of how the world worked. And then I believe the second moment must have occurred a few months later. In hindsight, I think Felipe brought this up because he was really adamant about me acknowledging the existence of trans people. I don't remember how we got on this. It was middle school. You talk about everything. Felipe was telling me that men can indeed produce breast milk. And I was like, go away. No, they can't. Fuck off. And then he, showed me scientific evidence from articles certain cis men are able to produce breast milk. They can lactate. I think I then said something okay, but men can't get pregnant though. And then he was like, okay, well, here's an article of a man who became pregnant. And then I pushed back and I was like, okay, yeah, but that's a man who started as a woman. So I'm talking about someone who started as a man. And he was like, sure, yes, he didn't use the word cis, but cisgender men don't get pregnant, but this is still a man who is pregnant. And I started getting really adamant about okay, but I'm right, because I think that's what all arguments are, just wanting to be right. I'm right because this isn't like a real man. This is like someone who became a man later. I don't remember his points quite as well, because I do think that me as a middle schooler was like, just, okay, I won, like I'm not going to hear anything you say anymore. But like what truly strikes me to this day is not even the fact that he brought up trans people, but that like after I pushed back and after my friends pushed back, because I do know that like my friends would also talk to him about this stuff, was that he was very adamant and like kept pushing and kept defending the existence of trans people. No matter what we said, no matter what arguments we said, no matter how high the risk was for social ostracization, especially at like such a formative time of his life, he did not back down. He had no stakes in this fight aside from, I guess, being correct, which was important to him, but also just the moral stance of defending people who were not around, but like still needed to be defended. Sure, there were no trans people in the room that we knew of at the time, but even when it was just the two of us, he still felt it was important to say something. Because my beliefs about this subject, my beliefs back then about this subject, did not merely affect our friendship. It would go on to affect any future interactions I potentially have with a trans person or queer person, and any future interactions I could potentially have with someone who could also meet a trans person or a queer person. And I've been wondering to myself lately, like, why this kid has been like popping up in my head. What is the importance of this person who I met at like the most trans ignorant point of my life, and who I can honestly say probably didn't do much to sway my mind about trans people in that like moment? And then when I came out 2.5-ish years ago, I didn't think about Felipe. I was thinking about all of the like really cool non-binary and trans people on my screen. So like, why has he been popping up in my mind these last couple months? I think the reason is because lately, 2.5 years into my transition, I don't need a trans icon. My inspiration right now is someone who has no skin in the game saying, yes, you can be trans, and also when you're not in the room, I will fight for you. My inspiration right now is someone who could choose not to say anything, but is willing to actively seek out bigots and actively seek out people whose minds can be changed, and actively seeking out people who are on the fence about trans people and saying, hey, here are these facts. Hey, please learn. Hey, please listen to me. And not giving up and not backing down, and very adamantly saying, hey, I'm going to keep finding you and I'm going to keep presenting these facts to you because this is important. This matters. I'm already out as a trans person. I don't need to be inspired to be trans. I just need to be inspired by like bravery, I think. Like as things get more dangerous for us, as more and more states and countries start to pass bills and laws that are designed to target us, as prison sentences are made longer for us using restrooms than for if we just defecated publicly in the streets, as protections for trans people are being stripped away, I need someone who is not trans, is not queer, to also be there on the front lines. One of my current close friends is kind of not supportive, has been very blasé, and is not what I would be inspired by right now. This video might not be about Felipe. This video might be about what I wish my friend was. Because right now I need someone who actually gives a shit. What I need right now is an ally, and like an empathetic, well-educated ally who's not educated because you're telling them these things, but is educated because you're their friend and they know you're trans and they care about you, and as such, they're aware enough to care about trans people. I need someone who does more than just get your pronouns right 85% of the time and is like proud and thinks they're doing well because they're like hitting that minimum. I need someone who I know, who I'm like confident is defending my existence whether I'm in the room or not. I need someone who like uses trans-inclusive language all the time and gets furious on our behalf when we tell them that ICE is being given the okay to shut us, to hunt us down, and that our licenses are being revoked, and that there are bathroom laws that are being passed to target us, and that the Olympics have now instituted this weird gender testing to try to find us and ban us, even though there's only been like one out trans person to ever compete. I need someone who gives a shit. We're being experimented on in prisons. I need someone who I could tell that to, and they're just not like, well, like, things have always been bad. There's a genocide of identity being waged on trans people, and I don't want to have to, like, convince a friend of mine that that's happening, and convince them that that's worth worrying about. Felipe was fucking exceptional for his time. Hell, Felipe would be exceptional now. Like, I can only hope that there's a trans kid in a middle school somewhere right now who's able to like overhear a Felipe, or who finds themselves in conversation with a Felipe, who's able to go home knowing that like at school there's someone willing to fight for them, and maybe each morning wake up and feel a little bit less trepidatious because they know that there's just this random kid solving a Rubik's Cube in the cafeteria, telling his table of friends, hey, like, trans women are women. Hell, I hope Felipe right now is still fighting the good fight and educating those who need education and supporting those who need support. That's what I need. And I hope you can find someone like Felipe too, because being an ally should be simple. It's so simple a middle schooler could do it.